All right, greetings everybody. Welcome to another wonderful week, another super wonderful guest lecturer. We're in for a treat this week, getting to hear from Mike Hill, who is the current Director of Athletics at University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Get your picks up, right? Go 49ers.
Sure.
Yeah, so Mike and I met when we were both at the University of Florida, and so we've known each other for a few years now. Know his wonderful wife, Jessica. She was on the girls' place board for me in Gainesville, and so we have great overlap, which is a positive thing. And so I just want to thank Mike for being here. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But Mike, how long have you been on the job?
Sure. So I've been here for 7 months. I'm a freshman AD. That's what I tell our freshmen here. I'm brand new, right? So getting adjusted to the chair.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be exciting for us to hear about and learn from you of how that 7 months, even 9 months, because I'm sure this whole story started prior to when you actually got the job. So I'm excited to hear about this and learn from you. And so just thank you for being here. I would love to start us off just by you telling us a little bit more about, how'd you even get to this point, right? How'd you even get to Florida? So.
Sure. So what's really cool about this opportunity to talk to your class and to talk to you, Jana, is sort of the intersection of our lives here. And the irony is I sit here as the athletics director at UNC Charlotte, but as a native of Clemson, South Carolina. It's crazy how life works. So I was born and raised in Clemson. Not many people can say that. I'm kind of a unicorn there. And so my dad was a professor at Clemson. He taught English. He housed over in Strode Tower. And my stepmom actually also got 2 degrees from Clemson. She taught there for a while as well. My mom was a school teacher in Anderson. So my life, and she got her master's at Clemson. So my life really, got its start there in Clemson. And I grew up in Death Valley and Little John, and I went to everything as a kid. It's where I fell in love with college sports because at the time, and Clemson's grown a lot, but certainly at that time, that was pretty much all there was to do was to go see the Tigers play, unless you go hang out on the lake, and I did some of that too. But it was a great place to raise a family, and for me to grow up there as a part of a family in that environment. I just fell in love with it. And, I've got countless stories about as a kid, just being a part of that community and going to games and every sport imaginable. I'd go to soccer. They didn't have women's soccer yet, but they had men's soccer. They were super good then. I know they've got a great program still, but awesome men's soccer program. You go to wrestling and baseball and women's basketball and women's tennis and men's tennis. And it was such a great environment. So that's where I fell in love with college sports.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the ACC, really. That whole deal, that was sort of the heyday of the ACC basketball at that time. You had, Dean Smith at Carolina. Coach K had just started at Duke. Jim Valvano was at NC State. Lefty Driesell was at Maryland. Bobby Cremins at Georgia Tech. Terry Holland at Virginia. It was an incredible lineup of coaches. So, you wanted to go all the time. Even Clemson, was good but not great at the time in men's hoops. They were really good in women's basketball. Annie Tribble was a coach there for a long time, and then Jim Davis. But it was just a lot of fun. So that's where I fell in love with college athletics. And but being a kid, being a high schooler, I sort of made up my mind that I didn't want to go to college where I grew up. And so I went away to school, and much to the chagrin of a lot of my friends in Clemson, I went to Chapel Hill. I still get a lot of crap about that, and I get it. I'll own it. But I went to UNC, immediately wanted to go to work in the athletic department as a student assistant. And so I went there and talked to some people to try to get a job as a freshman. Went to the sports information department. Got very nice. We got turned away. Came back after the summer of my freshman year. Went back as a sophomore. Got turned away again. Went back again after the fall semester, and finally, I guess they're like, we got to hire this guy. He's wearing us out. So I worked for 2.5 years in sports information in the North Carolina Athletic Department, and got to know a lot of people there as a student assistant, including John Swafford, who is now the commissioner of the ACC. At the time, he was the athletic director at UNC. But it was just, it was a great experience. I totally immersed myself in it. I would spend, no exaggeration, I would work 30 hours a week. I would just hang out in the Smith Center, just because I love being around it. So fast forward to graduating from Carolina, I had an entry-level position. I was hired by Raycom Sports out of Charlotte to help start a brand new bowl game in South Florida. That was back before there were 100 bowl games. There were like 20 bowl games, and so we started a new bowl game in South Florida. It was called the Blockbuster Bowl. It doesn't exist any longer, but at the time it was hugely successful. First game we had ever was number 3 FSU, or number 3 Penn State against number 5 FSU, Paterno against Bowden, sellout crowd where the Dolphins play. So great experience again. It was not my career goal to work for a bowl game, but it was an entree into athletics as a profession. And so from there, I left to go to Ball State after 2.5 years and worked at Ball State in the athletic department. And that was my first chance to actually be a full-time permanent employee in a collegiate athletic department, worked with some awesome people. Thought I would be there for a long time because I really enjoyed it, loved the people, but had an opportunity to go to Florida a year later. And the University of Florida, was sort of on my short list at the time to, if I could ever end up there one day, that would be a dream. And I was lucky enough to get a job there at Florida. So at 24 years of age, I was an entry-level marketing person, and I stayed there for 24 years. I never dreamt I would be there that long. I really didn't. I thought, like coaching, a lot of times you have to bounce around to kind of get to where you want to be. I knew I wanted to be an AD one day. I'd known that since high school, that I wanted to do this. But the Florida experience was incredible and really shaped me as a person, as a leader. And I think I really learned my style and found my style, I think, by those experiences as a Gator, from an entry-level person who really didn't have a clue about managing people, to now being an athletics director, where I look back and I see how much I learned from being around so many great coaches, so many great administrators, ADs, presidents, where you learn and you recognize and realize how important leadership is to have a successful organization. So I sit here today really, I still am blown away that I have this opportunity. I feel very, very lucky.
What was the progression of your career at Florida? So you came in entry level and you left as like the longest title ever invented, but like senior executive athletic extension. I don't know. So what was the progression of your 24-year career?
So my position when I started out was an entry level marketing position, and at the time we had it was me and 2 interns and an executive assistant, and then my boss, who was the assistant athletic director, the guy who hired me, John McBride. And John oversaw external affairs, is what we called it at Florida, and he oversaw the marketing department, corporate sponsorships, and also our radio television department. This predated even digital, like website. That's how old I am. So
right.
So it was that was the shop, right? And so I did that for a couple of years and was promoted, really basically in title. And then John left to become an athletics director a couple of years later. And when he left, I was promoted to oversee those areas that he'd been overseeing. So that gave me a chance to really have more responsibility and learn some new areas, including that radio TV area. And at that point, we had really gotten aggressive in developing a website, which I had a big hand in once it was obvious that was something we needed to do. From there, I just progressively gained more experience over the years, more opportunities. At that point, I was reporting directly to Jeremy Foley, the athletics director, and Jeremy continuously offered new opportunities for me to oversee different areas. I took on the ticket office, to supervise the ticket office. Then he gave me oversight of our sports information department, which was rebranded communications. And then I got sports responsibility. Eventually, I was given men's basketball and men's tennis. Now, of course, I still worked with all of our sports, but those were my day-to-day sports that I was responsible for as an administrator. It just grew over time, and eventually, up until about, I guess it was about 6 or 7 years ago, Jeremy decided to take me and a couple of other associate ADs that he had and elevate us to essentially all number twos. His executive team. There were 4 of us. So it was me, Chip Howard, who oversaw. Chip was executive associate AD for internal affairs. That's facilities, operations. He was our football point person. Then I was executive associate AD for external, which is all the areas I described for you, and Linda Teeler, who executive associate AD for administration. And Linda had originally been hired as our SWA, but had multiple responsibilities outside of just sports supervision, and she's a superstar as well. She's really talented. And so we had a great thing. We had, the 4 of us really were the executive team, and that was really the progression of my career there until I had this opportunity here. So Jeremy left, and we hired Scott Strickland to be our new athletics director for Mississippi State. And Scott and I had a relationship beforehand, so I was happy that he came in. He's a guy who I knew and trusted, and we worked really, really well together. But I knew that at some point here soon it was going to be time to leave the nest so that I could have a chance to be an athletics director, and this opportunity came about, as you said, 9 months ago.
Yeah. So can we talk, before we get into the Charlotte transition, could you talk a little bit about, how your leadership style maybe evolved over time? You mentioned you got in there and you didn't know what you were doing. None of us do when we're 24, really. You dated yourself by saying the Blockbuster Bowl.
Right.
Because I think there's like one Blockbuster left, and I think it's in Alaska.
That's exactly right.
But I'd say that because I feel like, I'm curious about like how much you evolve just because of who you are as a human, but like how much your leadership changed also because of how the world was changing too, with technology and the resources, and you being an external guy, that was how communication changed so much, right? So
right.
It's still changing. So, could you just talk a little bit about maybe how you saw yourself growing, changing?
Yeah, so my journey has been interesting because when I was in college and even out of college at my first job at the now defunct Blockbuster Bowl, I was, I like people. I love people. And I would say that, I was very relationship oriented, but pretty disorganized. I did well in school. I had good grades, but I wasn't necessarily a very good manager of people or tasks when I was right out of school. And part of that was because I just didn't have any exposure or training in that area. And I was put into a role where I was expected to just sort of do it. And what happened was I recognized pretty quickly in the professional world that I had to get organized, that I was all over the place, and things were falling through the cracks because I wasn't on top of things the way that I should be. And it wasn't because I was not working hard. I just wasn't working very smartly. And so what happened though was, I became super organized, and I started using like the Franklin program, the Franklin planners, and I became highly organized and really developed a reputation. It was ironic of being this organized guy, right? But what happened in the process, I think what suffered is I became more task oriented instead of people oriented. And it wasn't that I'd stopped caring about people, but I think I paid more attention to tasks than I did about people for a while as a young manager, particularly at Florida. And so I think that maybe my performance, in my opinion, lacked in that area for a while until I was around some other great leaders, coaches and leaders, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, the tasks are important, but what's most important is the people. And so that was an evolution for me. It's sort of like I started out people as a people guy, then I became task oriented because I needed to get better in that area, but I went overboard, you know. And so I had to recalibrate and get to where, like, tasks matter too, details matter, of course, devil's in the details, right? But in the end, it really is about people, and particularly when you ascend in an organization and you're managing people, you know, you have to be invested in them, and you have to be, I guess, attuned to them and dialed into them as best you can. I think when we fail as leaders, it's because we're maybe not as, I don't want to say not as invested, but maybe we're not paying enough attention, you know, or maybe we get complacent in those relationships. And I don't think you can ever get complacent in the relationship piece to it. So I learned a lot from a lot of, as I said, great coaches. And particularly, I would say, you know, Jeremy Foley is a mentor for me and someone who, you know, I've admired for a long time, because I watched him as a person who was on top of things for sure. And he didn't let things slip through the cracks, but he really cared about people. Like, he took the time to try to get to know everybody, you know, not just coaches. Like, he knew interns, he knew everybody. And
he wanted to know what book I was reading and what wine I was drinking, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
He took a personal interest in you, and that's just who he is. There was no ulterior motive. That's just who he is. And so, I mean, I'm sure you learned from him too. I learned from him. A lot of people have, because, you know, he was AD for a long time there. So I've tried to take those lessons and apply it in a way here that I hope makes me a good manager. I know for a fact that I'm a much better manager today than I was even 10 years ago, probably even 5 years ago, because we are evolving as people. And, you know, if you're not growing and getting better every day, you're going backwards. And I feel very strongly that the relationship piece to what we do makes or breaks you.
No, yeah, I mean, I love that. I absolutely agree with you. Tasks can get done, right? You can check the box, cross it off, but if you're pouring into the people, then maybe the task gets done even better than it would have, you know. And a task gets done, like, it has a finite point of completion, but relationships don't. Like, relationships are everyday, ongoing stuff. So yeah, I think those are great points. So I know, and we're going to get there, right? We're kind of talking about relationships. I know relationships in these first 7 months have been huge for you. But before we get into that, could we kind of talk about, you know, you're exceptional at what you do. Like, you've been at University of Florida, which is an elite athletic department, elite competitors, you know, results. So there had to be several jobs, right, that were interesting, or that you were asked to, you know, look into. So tell us a little bit about Charlotte. Like, why Charlotte? Obviously, we know the geography. Maybe it has something to do with that. But
Sure.
You know, about that. Like, okay, this like, you're a superstar, and I wanted it. You know, and so why Charlotte? How'd that all go? Tell us a little bit about the process.
So you're right. I had some opportunities before Charlotte to talk to people and interview. And, you know, I was really selective at jobs that I looked at because, you know, Billy Donovan once said to me, he said, "Don't mess with happy." And I took that to heart. And Jeremy and I talked about that a lot too, because Jeremy knew I wanted to be an AD. And, you know, he did all he could to try to help me prepare for that opportunity one day. But he also, you know, had a word of caution. He said, you know, you need to understand, you also, you lose a little bit of your life when you become an AD, and you do, okay, and that's fair. It's a demanding job in terms of the time required. But all that said, you know, for me, it wasn't an obsession to be an AD. Like, I could have probably finished out my career at Florida and been happy, but I felt like there was something that was missing. I felt I was ready to be challenged, to be able to lead a program and to give it my best shot. And so I was highly selective in the jobs that I looked at. I probably, in the course of my career, interviewed for maybe 5 athletic directors' jobs. And every one of them, except for this one, was a Power 5 job. And two of them I was like a serious finalist for. So it shows you sort of the power of Florida, really, as much as anything, and giving that opportunity. But when this job opened up, this is a place I'd heard a lot about. I'd heard a lot about it from people like you and Amanda Butler and Kyle Church, who was our men's basketball Dobo, just Preston Green, strength coach at Florida. Everybody raved about Charlotte. And I knew the city of Charlotte because I spent a lot of time in Charlotte as a youth. I had grandparents here, aunts and uncles, cousins. I was up in Charlotte all the time, but I had never made my way to the campus before. So I was intrigued. I was intrigued because of the personal aspect, for sure. It was a chance to kind of get back home to the Carolinas, which was intriguing to me. But I wasn't going to take a job just to say I'm an AD. If this had been a bad job, I would not have applied for it. But it was everything that I heard about it was it's a great place to be. They're amazing people. That got my attention. The chancellor has been here 14 years, longest tenured chancellor in the UNC system. That got my attention. And then when I had a chance to see the campus, I was blown away. I mean, it's beautiful. And I've said this a million times. I'll say it to you guys that literally, if you know, I've been to ACC and SEC campuses, all of them practically. Maybe not a couple of the ACC campuses that are newer I haven't been to, but most of them I've been to. And if you picked up the UNC Charlotte campus and blindly dropped it into the ACC or the SEC, it would fit beautifully. Like it's that well done. The red brick and the green space, and I would say the quality of the people administratively here has really impressed me as well. So it became for me, it was a perfect fit because it matched my needs personally and professionally. The personal needs are really important to me too. Like quality of life matters to me. Mm-hmm. And I was not going to pick up and just move somewhere to be an AD in some crappy place. I just, I enjoy life. I like to get out. I like to do stuff. I like to go to concerts. I like to go out to eat. I like to see people. I like natural beauty. I got to have some trees. I love the mountains. I've got a place in Blowing Rock. I've lived for 5.5 years. So, that's another thing. Gosh, I'm an hour and 45 minutes now from my mountain home, which is a really nice bonus. So the job was, it's funny, up until about a year ago, I don't know that I'd really given this job that much thought. And when it was apparent that it was going to be available and talking to people and learning about it, I realized, my God, this might be like the perfect job for me.
Mm-hmm. So the Charlotte job, you start realizing it's going to become available because Judy Rose, who is, an icon in her own right, is retiring. And so you are following in footsteps of someone who, how long was she there? Was it 30? Was she that?
She was AD for 28 years, and she was here for 43 years because she was the women's basketball coach before that.
Correct. So Judy is someone that if you read enough sport management books or basketball coaching books, her name will pop up. And so, then you were following that act. And so maybe talk a little bit about how you're going about navigating that situation.
Well, it's funny the situations we find ourselves, in life, and I'm a big believer that, you have lessons that you can either learn or choose to ignore. And I had an incredible learning experience going through a transition at Florida with a longtime respected, admired, sort of iconic athletic director in Jeremy Foley, okay? And Jeremy retires, and it's very clear, so the institution's going to hire a sitting AD to replace Jeremy. And we bring in Scott Strickland, and Scott comes in, and over the course of the 2 years I worked with him, approximately 2 years, what I observed is that he didn't come in and with our administrative staff sort of lay down a new law. What he did was he came in and he listened, he observed, and I think he respected, what we had accomplished and achieved there. And so I was able to take that experience and also know what it's like to have the same boss for so long and then have change and what that feels like. I can maybe relate to the staff here and know that like they've been led by this amazing woman, and Judy Rose, who I didn't know at all until right before I got this job. She's incredible. Like she's been so good to me and so helpful, and what she has built on this campus is extraordinary. So it's obvious to see why people here admire her so much, love working with her. And so it's scary for people. Change is scary for people. And so what you have to do, you come in and I can relate and say, look, I've been there. I know what you're feeling. Now I can assure you that I'm not in here to turn things upside down, because there's a lot going on here that's right. Now, are we going to do some things differently? You bet we are, because I'm a different person. I'm a different leader than Judy is. No matter who you brought in here, things are going to be different. But there shouldn't be fear in that. Like we should embrace that and work together. And I'm here to learn from you. And that's what I told everyone here. And that's the truth. Like I'm here to gain institutional knowledge from everyone who's been here and been a part of building this place. I'm here to learn these people and understand, what their strengths are, maybe what their concerns are, and go about working together with them and this team to strategize to build our program and take advantage of an amazing foundation, but really to kind of accelerate our growth. And so I think that, that was really key for me, is having gone through that at Florida. It taught me a lot of lessons about how to go about things. And so I'm thankful for that experience. I really am. And I've tried to apply those lessons as best I can here. And the people here have been incredible. I mean, I've built some really good relationships here on staff and on campus. Still have obviously a long way to go because I've only been here for 7 months. So I don't know everybody and I don't know everything. But, working hard to get there. And the people on this campus have been spectacular.
So let's just keep going with that. The people, I follow you on social media. It seems like every day you're taking a selfie with students over here, or alumni before a football game, or I think you even went on the light rail with some guys and some kids, and you're not taking selfies by yourself, and so tell us about a little bit the rule of relationships in the first 7 months.
It's so important to connect with people, because when you're sort of an outsider, not sort of, you are an outsider, you're coming in, and the connection that I had to this place was really just an affinity for this area, but I didn't really have a connection to this institution. And so it was really important for me to find ways to connect to people who love this place. It's their alma mater. It's where they work. They have family who go here or connected in some way. And so, social media is one of many tools I've tried to utilize to sort of effectively illustrate to the Niner Nation, who I am. And it's a way to tell a story, really. I mean, obviously social media doesn't fully expose who you are as a person, but it's a way, I think, to sort of connect with people. And so one thing Judy Rose, she would tell you, like, she wasn't on social media at all. Jeremy Foley didn't use social media. He followed, but he didn't produce content, and that's fine. Those two are two great leaders. But for me, it's a way for me to connect with our fans, especially our students and our young alums, who I could sense were really hungry to feel connected to this place. And we've pretty quickly built, I think, a great bond. I think there's excitement. Every new hire has a honeymoon period. I think mine is still there. I don't know how long it'll go. Probably at some point I'll make a decision people don't like, and then it'll be over. But for now, there's some equity that's been built with our fans. And they see me sort of as a normal person, instead of some AD who's sitting in an office and is inaccessible. And I want to try to dispel that stereotype and that image, so that they understand, I am going to be accessible and I am going to listen. And not every decision I'm going to make is going to be universally accepted. Not every choice we make as a department is going to be, praised across the board. That's just a part of leadership and management. You got to have thicker skin than that if you're worried about people being critical. But I do think if people understand and do believe that you care about them and you care about this place, that it buys you some credibility, I guess, with them and a trust. And really, it's just about trying to earn trust instead of who's this guy from Florida, right? I mean, I've got to overcome the fact, we laugh about it, I got to overcome the fact that I'm a UNC Chapel Hill grad. And that's an issue.
I agree. I wondered about that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on this campus, it's an issue. I mean, people, and I know when I was in the mix as a finalist, there were a lot of people who were turned off by that on this campus. And hey, I went to school where I went to school. We all did, right? And so,
right.
I had to be able to prove to some people that I'm here as a 49er and I'm going to love this place and I'm going to do everything I can to try to help everyone get the athletic program to what they all aspire to have. And that to me is sort of the biggest message in all of this, and why the relationships matter, is me as a new AD will not solve our problems. It's not a one-person deal at all. Like, it's going to take everybody in this program, in this university, and in our alumni base pulling together to get us where we want to go. If I just come in here and talk about it, it ain't happening. It's not going to happen. Like, we have to have people bought into a vision and who want to be a part of something special. We're still babies. This university was founded in the 40s. We don't have the history that Florida does, that Clemson does, that Chapel Hill does. We're a young institution. We've only been playing football for 5 years and 5 games.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've got work to do. And we're trying to catch up. It's hard to overcome hundreds of years of history that other schools have. But we're not going to do it with just me or just a coach or just a few student athletes. It's got to be the entire sort of institution, campus and alums and everyone who's been a part of this, to feel like that we're invested in them and they want to be invested in us. And that's how we're going to get to where we want to be.
The thing that I hear in that's so impressive to me, and obviously I know you a little bit and the kind of guy you are, but like you initiated that. You're not sitting waiting around for students to come to you, players to come to you, alumni to come to you. Like, you're going and meeting them where they are. And I think that I just didn't want that to be overlooked. Like, I think that's a big thing. Yes, you are the AD, but that just because you're up there doesn't mean that they have to come to you. Like, you're putting yourself out there, which I think is a really cool thing to see. I'm going to be respectful of your time. I have 2 other questions.
Sure.
And then kind of, I like to do some quick hitters at the end,
okay.
Just to keep you on your toes. So, in looking forward, you've been in the athletic world now for, 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see it going? Like, where do you see athletics and athletic departments, like college sports, like 10 years from now? Like, what path do you think we're on? Because life is things are changing faster than they've ever changed. So, what do you think's ahead of us?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, Jana. I don't think anybody can fairly answer that question or really know. Obviously, it's just one man's opinion, but there's so many factors in play right now that could dramatically affect how we operate. That it's difficult to predict. I do think this. You're looking at, as you look at the Power 5 schools, even within the Power 5 leagues, you're starting to see a little bit of separation between the quote-unquote haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a part of me that wonders if at some point down the road will we see another sort of splintering or division of those programs. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying, though, that you've got some programs that are, just killing it, and they're really driven by successful football programs, because that is just by sheer volume with fans and TV revenue, et cetera, gives them a better chance to build a budget and reinvest in facilities, et cetera. You've got other schools in those same leagues who maybe don't have quite the same volume of alums, fan base, historical success in the sport, and so you're starting to see revenue gaps, and the reality is this, people hate talking about money as it relates to college athletics, but everything takes money. I mean, a university takes money to run, and an athletic department is a division of an institution. It takes money to run it. And so, if you've got a $140 million budget, like some schools have, and then you turn around and someone in the same league has a $75 million budget, that's a pretty big disparity. Now, I would take a $75 million budget here right now. That'd be awesome, But within those leagues, you wonder how long that can sustain itself. And so, and then you have the next tier of schools where we find ourselves here at Charlotte, and what's called the Group of Five. And so, these 5 leagues, Conference USA and the Sun Belt and the Mountain West Conference, leagues like that, the MAC. These are leagues that are still competing at all the highest level of football, meaning FBS. They can qualify for a bowl, but don't have the same budgets. Again, we have a $29+ million budget here at UNC Charlotte, and you've got schools making $100+ million at the highest levels of the Power Five. So, and we're in common company, with these other schools in our league and those other leagues. So I think that's going to be a big question mark to see how that evolves over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
What's it going to look like? What are conferences going to look like? There's some. This has been floated. I don't know if this will happen, but I could see this. Is it possible that there will be conferences that are designed specifically for football, and then all the other sports get realigned more geographically?
Yeah.
Because right now you've got these far-flung leagues, and just as an example, in our league here in Conference USA, we have schools. We have Marshall in our league, which is the northernmost school in our league, and we also have UTEP, which is like 2 time zones away. So, it's Conference USA is a perfect name for it, because we're
right
in there in every time zone. So what might that look like down the road for conferences if you had more geographically aligned leagues for all sports except football, and then football could continue to do what it's doing because of the national interest in that sport? But I think that could be a big issue. There are a lot of lawsuits out there right now, as we all know, that could impact the model and how we operate, and so that remains to be seen. But those are going to have an impact one way or another on how we run college athletics, and I think we're going to have some insight into that here probably pretty soon. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's great insight. I've asked that question with a couple other people, and it obviously is. It's just kind of what are you seeing and thinking, and no one talked about conference formations, and so thank you for that. So a couple little, I'm gonna give you a softball, because this will be an easy one. Quick hitter, favorite band?
Oh, come on, the Avett Brothers.
Are they behind you? Is that a signed photo?
Yes,
okay.
That is indeed the Avetts. They're right there. Okay, and they're actually a band from Concord, which is just up the street from where we are. And I've heard them. I've been to 17 of their concerts now, and I'll be at number 18 and 19 on December 30 and 31 here in Charlotte. And I absolutely love the Avett Brothers. They're awesome.
All right, so tell us, is there a favorite out of the ones you've seen? Is there like a venue or an experience? Yeah,
I would have to say probably the most spectacular venue was seeing them at Red Rocks. I saw them summer before this past one in Red Rocks, and it was absolutely incredible. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I would probably go see anybody at Red Rocks after that experience, but to see my favorite band in that venue was really, really special. But I've seen them also. I love seeing them in small venues. You see him in a 2,500 or 3,000 seat arena. Saw him at the Florida Theater in Jacksonville several years ago, and one of the best shows I've ever seen. And to a person, you know, anyone I've ever recommended they go see the Avets live, they may say, oh, their music's pretty good. They've heard them on the radio. When they see them live, the response is typically, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, they're happy intense. It's just nonstop, right? So, okay, perfect weekend day. What would a perfect weekend day look like to you? I'm sure there'd be some sport involved. I'm sure there'd be some outdoors involved.
Yeah, so it was really close to a perfect weekend day last Saturday. We had our open football weekend, so there was no game home or away. So for sure it involves me being in my home in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Probably going to get a good run in at Bass Lake to start the day. Going to walk my 2 Labradors. Jess and I will take them for a walk. Maybe go for a hike somewhere and then settle in and watch either football or basketball for the majority of the day. Probably going to stop by a brewery, maybe Appalachian Mountain Brewery, one of my favorites there in Boone, and have a couple of pints while we watch. And then I'll finish the evening grilling something. Maybe probably a big fat ribeye steak.
You're definitely getting your steps in on that day.
It's a good day right there.
So I think I have a theory that you wanted to get to Charlotte to get closer to Avets, you could stalk them, and to have more breweries around you. So we'll close with best beer you found in Charlotte so far.
It's an embarrassment of riches in this community, I will tell you. There are a bunch that I really like. I'm a big fan of Juicy J, which is a brewery, Legion. And then I also love Hop Drop from NoDa. And I'm a hop head. I love IPAs, so you know that, right? So those are 2 of my favorite right now. But Hop Drop and Juicy J, that's neck and neck right there.
All right. I've actually been to both of those. I lived in NoDa when I was a 49er. So
that's awesome.
So awesome. Mike, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. This is all great stuff. You can't ever tell if the kids are actually going to listen to it. They're not kids, but but I hope they do. I implore them to, because this was amazing. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for giving me the opportunity. Good luck to everybody in this class. You've got an amazing professor, and this is an awesome experience. So thank you.
All right, and I like the Norm the Niner look.
Hey, thank you. It's got 5 more days. It's coming off, but I'm going to enjoy it for now.